What's up everybody, this is the Book of X, and we are going to discuss today another batch of games that I file under the list of hidden gems that you can find in Game Pass today. This is a series where I explore games that may not have got the same level of love as some of the major titles that have dropped into Game Pass over the recent years. So let's just get straight into the first title that I have on this list today. So the first one up today is Kinitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess. Now this is an action strategy game developed by Capcom that was released back in 2024, and what this game is you essentially assume the control of the character called So, where you're tasked with protecting a princess, and the goal is to get her to the top of the mountain. So what this game essentially is it's a tower defense strategy action game whereby you essentially deploy into levels, and your goal is to get from the start to the finish, ensuring the princess survives. Now once it's daytime you just travel straight through, but when it's nighttime then you have to bunker down and get ready for combat. The way you do this is by recruiting allies and purging an area. So as the game goes on, you recruit more and more allies to your side, and you can essentially upgrade these warriors. So you start off with just basic soldiers with spears and bowmen, but as you go along you come across a sort of full-blown samurai, you come across characters with guns and so on, and the goal is to just get them more and more powerful, so that when it comes to each nighttime, the strategy you go with is entirely down to yourself. You can play the game by whatever strategy means. So if you're a person who prefers range combat over close combat, you can deploy your troops in that way. And as the game goes on, you come across a further variety of enemy types, each one requiring its different strategy, each level structure requiring its different strategy. Sometimes you can maybe get from the start to the end in 3 moves, but is it the right thing to do to get to the end in 3 moves? Because of the area that you're dealing with, it might be better to do it in 4 or 5 moves, and ensuring that everybody gets to the finish line sort of fully intact. So great strategy game here, very different, and I appreciate sort of what Capcom have done here, as you don't see many of this type of game. Next up then we have Brotato. Now if you're a big fan of Vampire Survivors that launched a few years back, well, Brotato is a 2023 top-down shoot 'em up that's in the same roguelike style of Vampire Survivors. So what Brotato essentially is you have to survive 20 waves of enemies, and as each wave ends you essentially pick up guns, upgrade guns, and sort of get other perks alongside it. And you take your potato, because the character is a potato, and mutate it in various ways to give it upgrades. What comes with every weapon or every upgrade you do, for every buff there's a debuff. So it's the pro and the con. So some buffs might cause you to deal a lot more damage, but then you lose 1 HP of health every 1 second, whereas there's other ones which can reduce your damage output but allow you to travel at twice the speed. And then you can go for a mixture of short range or long range, so you can walk around with fully upgraded bats versus machine guns. And if you combine weapons together, so if you combine for example 2 pistols, it turns into a more sort of powerful pistol, and you can get various rarities on. Great fun, if a little derivative at time with repetitiveness, but what you can do is every time you complete the wave of 20 you unlock new characters, and each of those new characters come with different ways of having to run it. So there's certain potatoes that you run whereby they can only equip melee weapons, but then they have certain perks to go with that. Then you've got other characters that have extraordinary amount of health, but then you cannot use any weapons at all. You have to just use your fists and just fight your way through it. So very great game, and an easy game to just pick up and play if you've only got sort of 10-15 minutes to work with before carrying on your day. We then have Dishonored: Death of the Outsider. Now this is a 2017 action-adventure game developed by Arcane and is a spin-off of Dishonored 2. Now this game was originally meant to be an expansion to Dishonored 2, but the size and scope of the game grew enough that it became its own standalone expansion. Now it's not as long as Dishonored 1, it's not as long as Dishonored 2, but it's another great trip into the Dishonored universe, and what you take control of is a character called Billy Lurk, who you have to track down and assassinate a character known as the Outsider. It plays in the exact same way as Dishonored 2 does. You have access to various supernatural powers throughout this game, so if you're a big fan of the Dishonored games, then but I've missed this one out, then it's definitely worth the trip back down into the Dishonored route, because we haven't had a new title in the Dishonored franchise since this one, and what I found was quite a bit of the bones of this game are things that made their way into Deathloop a few years later. The final game then on the list today that I'm going to highlight is Star Wars Squadrons. Now Star Wars Squadrons is a space combat game developed by EA Motive. Now what this game is essentially a combat, so think, something like Ace Combat, but entirely set in the Star Wars universe, where you take form of either the Empire or the Rebel Alliance. Now on the Empire side you have your traditional TIE fighters, TIE bombers and so on, whereas on the Rebel Alliance side you have the A-Wings, the Y-Wings, the X-Wings and so on. This game is predominantly multiplayer focused, so it's all the multiplayer game modes you'd come to expect, sort of capture the flag style systems, destroy things, just team deathmatch and so on. But this game also comes with a single player campaign, which is set after the events of Return of the Jedi, where you play both sides, so the Vanguard Squadron from the Rebel Alliance and the Titan Squadron from the Empire, both of which become involved with Republic's Project Starhawk, and the Vanguard Squadron's goal is to ensure its completion, while the Titan Squadron's attempt is to try and destroy it. This game did not get the same sort of love and recognition as other Star Wars games that have launched over the years, but this is a very, very good space combat game, and sort of highlights the breadth of experiences you can have in the Star Wars universe. It doesn't always have to involve lightsabers and so on, or just a Battlefront style one. This is one whereby it's a first person perspective shooter in a cockpit, so it just puts you right into the seat of a pilot. And with that, guys, that is the game that I want to highlight today. I hope you do check out some of these titles if you haven't already. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments if you have played some of these, or if you haven't played them and do decide to play them, do come back to the video and let me know your thoughts. But other than that, guys, if you do like, share and subscribe to the channel, I'd very much appreciate it, and I'll catch you all again soon.